It's Wednesday, October 12th, 2005, and I am en route to Boise to have a back surgeon assess my condition. And I've stopped on the way at Craters of the Moon National Park. It is a fascinating place, a huge area. The Oregon Trail travelers learned to circumvent this area, of course, because although it looks quite nice and passable right here, all around us are areas that are just totally covered with broken lava fields. This is a shield kind of lava that just oozes out and then spreads across the landscape. For your information, imagine pouring cold molasses onto a table several times over the course of a day. That's what a shield volcano landscape looks like. Once it cools and hardens into large cracks, innumerable small cracks, deep fissures, and the occasional sinkhole. Not only can wagons not cross, it's very difficult to hike it without a trail. I think the bird I may have seen was the snowy plover, but I don't know. Hopefully I'll see some today. These are the dry sand dunes, pre-dunes if you will, before you get to the ocean. And back in there is where the Sutton parking range is, but this is where the snowy plovers apparently nest. And so they've got a pretty well marked out, well, trails marked out well, and it's marked with those posts with the blue lines to keep us in this area and away from where the plovers are, which are to our right and left, I assume, when they're here. Don't know if they're here or not. I don't know what this print is here. At first I thought there was a dog, but I'm guessing that this is more like maybe a raccoon. You can see that the foot here splays out, and there looks like claw marks right up ahead of the toes. The tracks of another little critter that's been on the trail at least within the last day or so, I think. And if they had any rain yesterday, it must have been to this morning that he was here, or it was. But you can see these are different. They have kind of like rounded toe pads. Now right in here, the sand gets really solid. And my guess is, particularly since you can see ripples here, that at some high tide, or some seasonal high tide, or whatever, the water comes right up through here and washes this area clean. some little critter lives there. I wonder if it could be like a sand spider that makes that hole and hopes that some other little critter will fall in it. It's interesting being down here in what are obviously sand dunes, but how they're all stabilized by the grasses, by the big dunes in the front that are somewhat static, but still change according to apparently the high tides that will come in. But here conifer trees growing too, which indicates strong long-term stability. I suspect that the only thing that can affect this particular ecology is the relative rise and fall of the oceans themselves, either through global warming, natural or unnatural. But anyway, what's more interesting from this vantage point is this a natural river? It's flowing to the left. Or is it tidal water coming in to the right somewhere that ultimately flows this way? It doesn't seem to show a tidal characteristics, although there is water at higher points, like that little pool over there in the upper left hand corner. But it really does look like just a stream. I just took a survey, government survey, by this forest, which is relatively limited in length along the coast, given by an older Forest Service guy and a younger guy, who each of them read through the entire form, which I could have read and answered myself in at least half the time. The questions were, at least as near as I can tell from any experience I've had with forms or the creation of them in advertising and marketing, in inanity. It was for the purpose of trying to convince Congress that they should increase the budget here because of the usage. The really important questions, the ones that I have, or issues I see, or opportunities I see, are totally ignored. There's not any opportunity at all to give that information. One of the most foolish wastes of time I've ever done, and an absolute epitome of what I expect from the government. Very, very little intelligent thought. This interpretive sign has a little bit of information I didn't know, and that is that in the early 1900s, a European beach grass, or bluegrass, was apparently planted in the dunes in order to stabilize them. And they're capable apparently of growing even though they're covered with 3 feet of sand. But as a consequence, they're what has stabilized the dunes way up near the water, the ones I was on earlier this morning, and thereby protecting all this water, this area inland. But you can see that this area inland is affected by either water and or wind. Kind of interesting. There's the beach area, of course, to the left. And then the tall dunes that I stood on is the next to the right, what's called the foredune. And then the deflation plain, you could clearly see that this would all have been hollowed out and was swept by, but couldn't tell whether it was water, but it looked like it was water, but it may have only been wind. And then the actual dunes that are the product of the light-colored sand particles being blown inland. And then the coast forest